Welcome in. It's Mr. Fox here, and you are watching The Counselor. It's good to see y'all. Good to hear from you. Thanks for being here. You're not new to YouTube, so you know what to do. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Please come back if you are so inclined, and thank you for being here. Now, today I want to get into a subject that I think is really important for all of us. For all of us that claim to be human, frankly, and that associate with being a human being. And I think that pretty much encompasses all of us. Um, and this is a subject that it doesn't really matter where you come from, what your orientation is in any of its varieties, what your background is, what your job is, what your career is, what your perspectives are, and a whole host or a whole gamut of other things, in my mind, anyway. The subject I want to get into today is empathy. And empathy is, to me, the thing, that thin veil, and it's really not even thin, but it is a line, I think, in the sand of what makes us human and not human. All right. To me, this is one of those things that has become so monumentally important, it cannot be overstated. Okay? It is one of those things that is kind of going by the wayside in our world right now. And it's one of those things that, and one of those markers that continues to make us who we are as human beings and allows us to be human. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that to be human is to be empathetic on some level and to varying degrees. Um, and I think we are empathetic, every single one of us, to some degree. We are empathetic. Now, there are some of us who struggle with disorders that don't allow for us to be empathic or don't allow us to be as empathetic as we ought to be, maybe. Things such as narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, psychopathy, sociopathy, things like that, sure. And that's where you get your serial killers and people that pretty much have a complete disregard for life and for others around them. But I think empathy is every day. It's every day in every way, and it matters person to person, whether you're sitting across from a stranger or somebody you know, a family member, a partner, somebody that you love dearly. It doesn't matter. Empathy is what keeps civilization afloat on some level. I mean, and not even really some level, but I think on many levels. I think if we weren't capable of empathy or capable of asking why or what or how may this affect another? How might somebody else be seeing this, viewing this, feeling this? Where are those thoughts coming from? That's what keeps us grounded, and that's what keeps us human. So, what is empathy? Well, empathy is closely related to sympathy, and those two get sometimes used interchangeably and sort of, you know, as the same thing or get thought of as the same thing. But I do think there is a line in the sand in terms of what the differences are between empathy and sympathy. Empathy is feeling as if I am you, as if I am seeing life and experiences and emotions and feelings. It's as if I am feeling through your window of being, okay? To be empathetic means I feel things really almost as if I am you from the outside. So I am as close to feeling it as you are feeling it as humanly as possible. Whereas sympathy is more of a, I don't want to say it's a I don't care approach or sort of a detached approach, but it's more of a, oh, you're feeling a certain way. I see that you're feeling a certain way, and I'm here to feel that, but I'm not really as involved or attached or engaged in it. I'm sort of with you, but I'm not with you in this. Empathy sits with people. It lies down. It gets comfortable. It says, you know what? You're in this muck right now. You're in this funk. You're going through whatever. And you know what? I'm just going to be here. I'm not going to try to solve or fix or offer solutions or try to explain away or offer any kind of advice whatsoever. I'm just going to sit next to you and be with you as you feel and experience your emotions in whatever capacity that you need to experience those and feel those. Wherever you are is where you need to be. And guess what? I'm going to be right here with you. That's what empathy is. Sympathy is more of, well, I'm just going to acknowledge it, but I'm not going to really sit with it necessarily. I'm not going to stick around too long. Oh, that sucks, or oh, that must be painful, or oh, that's unfortunate. But at the same time, I'm not getting too involved with it. I'm not getting too invested in the other person or persons. So that is the distinction that I kind of draw with sympathy and empathy. And they're both important and they both matter and they both are valuable things to have as human beings. I'm not trying to dismay sympathy by any means. But I do put a lot more stock in empathy. And I think it is so important and is so valuable and so necessary and continues to become even more prominent and necessary and important in our world as it is today as we go about things here in the year of 2025. Um, and it can't be overstated. And I think sometimes people get lost in the value of that. Okay? And so empathy allows for us to be heard and understood. I mean, who doesn't want to be heard and understood? I don't know about you, but when I see people in the world or when I hear stories and when I come across people and when I engage with people, whether I know them or I don't, here's what I have picked up on in my 43 years of existence. We all want to be seen and we all want to be heard. Now that varies from person to person and how much and how often and all the intricacies of that and the complexities of that vary from person to person. Okay. But there is not a single person alive that doesn't want or need to be seen and heard. We all want that. We all need that. And, if you think back to my previous video about curiosity and empathy kind of go hand in hand. Um, I think to be curious is to be empathetic on some level, and to be empathetic is to be also curious. You know, I want to know you. I want to understand you better. I want to know your story and how your version of life and your experiences that encompass that and that you've accumulated thus far, how does that make you who you are? You know, and I think empathy really asks and beckons a question. Um, Tell me more about yourself, please, if you're so willing. And it also allows for that space for the other person to feel comfortable, to feel as if they can share that with the other person. But curiosity and empathy are kind of hand in glove on some level. And I think it matters. So keep curiosity in your mind as we think about empathy. Okay, curiosity allows space as well as empathy does, right? Empathy allows that space, but curiosity, if you think back, I think curiosity, the right kind of curiosity, makes it possible for the right questions to be asked in the right way, and to a certain extent, the right questions asked in the right way at the right time. And right time, right questions, right way, all in alignment allows for the fostering of a trusting, vulnerable, open, receptive connection with somebody. And that's what we were asking for. That's what we want. That's what we need. And so much of that is being compromised in today's world, I think, for a variety of reasons. And if we lose our capacity for empathy, or if empathy gets reduced down to something that's really not essential or not really thought of as necessary to be alive as a human being, then we are in a whole world of trouble. And should it ever go by the wayside, should it ever completely fall off or be deemed as sort of an inconvenience, I guess, for lack of a better word, then we're in trouble. And the problem I see, one of the major problems I see in the world today, to add my personal flavor to it, is I do feel as if we are, um, empathy is being attacked. All right, being kind is being attacked. So to be empathetic is to be curious, it's to be kind, and it's really to get to know the person and where they're coming from in their own way. And the world is attacking that right now in my view. And it's not a pick a side of the aisle saying. I think the world at large has a problem with uh, seeing other people, as humans, as fallible, imperfect, flawed human beings. And human beings are a whole gamut. We are the entire gamut of experience, right? We all have our own stories. We all have our own ways of seeing the world, of adhering to the world, the values, the morals, uh, the way that we operate and carry ourselves and function in the world around us is, um, it's all unique, and it's all valuable. It's all, I think, necessary. And I do think there is some rhyme and reason for all this. That I don't know. I can't you know, can put that in in words of perfection, I guess, or totally explain that, in its entirety. But I do think there's a reason why we're all a little different, a little unique. And I think because of our differences, our uniquenesses, our our whole gamut of being, empathy becomes necessary. And the thing about empathy is that I don't think empathy necessarily implies that I need to agree, or that we need to agree, or that I need to fully comprehend and fully understand uh, your way of being, your way of living, your way of operating. I don't think it implies that I need to agree or that I need to like or totally understand it. I do think there's a little bit of wiggle room here for this. I don't need to fully adopt your worldview to be empathetic. I don't need to um, completely align with or agree with your way of being. I just don't. To not to be empathetic, but to be empathetic means that I need to see you at bottom as a living, breathing soul, a person, a being, a human being. And beyond our differences and our thoughts and our philosophies and our religions and our political affiliations and on and on and on, you are a human being. I am a human being. And empathy cuts right through all of our peripheral differences. The way that we think about the world, the way that we believe about the way life works and what life's about and what the best way of doing things are, empathy at bottom remains the glue, I believe, of what holds us together and what can transcend even those differences. You know, I have never personally disagreed with somebody so much that I want to physically harm them. I've never really felt that strongly towards a person or a group to the point where I really want to physically, violently, aggressively harm them. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have disagreements with people. I have disagreements with institutions and governments and political identities and affiliations and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't see eye to eye with a lot of things in the world. And I have my own grievances about how things work within our system and within our society and, frankly, with our world at large. But to go out and viciously attack somebody, whether through physicality or verbally, through words or through written words on social media, that's not really my cup of tea. And I see that more and more in the world. I see people lashing out, attacking people for a variety of reasons that basically fundamentally it gets to a point where it's almost dehumanization in action. And I don't know about you, but I'm not capable of dehumanization. I just don't think I have that in me. Um, but empathy is what keeps me afloat. And I think for probably many of you, it's what keeps you tethered too. And I think why empathy keeps us tethered is it keeps us human. it keeps us from dehumanizing others. You know, we have to learn how to be together more, to sit with each other more, to listen better and deeper. We don't do that well enough, and our world doesn't really allow for those kinds of spaces in which we can do that and do it in such a way in which we're not thinking about what's next. Our society and culture is so busy, so hustle and bustle, so about the grind, and about the grind set, right? About being busy and being on the move, that we don't take the time to be still, to be quiet, to be silent, to pause, and really take the time to connect with other people and really learn about them and learn from them. Because to be able to do that means that we have to really take multiple steps back, and we have to basically, in many ways, sit down and wipe our mirrors clean so we can allow that space for that other person to enter, and enter a way in which they feel comfortable and safe and secure, which allows them to open up, which allows us to be able to learn, and which furthers their comfortability, right? You see where this is going. And then that allows for us, the listener, at some point to become more open, because this person feels safe enough and vulnerable enough to be able to share who they are with us. And then in turn, or when it's our turn, we then can open up and share with them about ourselves. And see, that's a beautiful thing when you get to a place where the connections are that. Because what we realize when we become that vulnerable and we feel that safe and comfortable with somebody is that they're human. Despite all our differences, despite all our whatever we might disagree on, because we don't have to agree on everything. And I would argue we don't need to. And I think that's what makes life and living interesting, is the fact that we have different perspectives. But I think we have to do a better job in general across the board, myself included, of sitting more, listening more deeply, wiping our prejudices and our biases and our world beliefs and our perspectives and all that junk that sometimes we get caught up in, our judgments, all of that stuff needs to be turned off, turned down. Okay. And I know it's not easy. And and that's the thing about all of this. I would be remiss if I said empathy is always easy, because I don't think it is. I don't think empathy is easy at all, frankly, sometimes. And and I'm not trying to sell you on that. But that doesn't mean that it's not necessary, and it doesn't mean that it's not worth it. And it doesn't mean that it's not important, because it is. I think at bottom it is. I mean, if you've ever been around somebody who has low empathy or comes across as lacking empathy, or if you've known somebody that might qualify for a narcissist or somewhere on that spectrum of narcissism, then you know kind of what I'm talking about. You know how unnerving and unsettling and kind of, disquieting being around somebody that lacks empathy and has low empathy, how just disturbing that can feel. There's an ickiness. There's a visceral response, I think, that somebody who is empathetic has when they're around somebody or around people that just lack empathy and or have none or very little. It's quite alarming and it's disturbing because you hear things, you see things from people that suffer from a lack of empathy or have no empathy. You're just alarmed by what you hear and frankly sometimes what you see. Um, and I think we have to be better. And and it takes work. It takes patience. It takes grace. It takes getting comfortable with our own shit, frankly. Um, and what does that look like? That looks like dealing and wrestling with our own shit. It's hard to be empathetic, I think, if you haven't looked in your own mirror, right? You haven't cleaned up your own house, if you know what I'm saying. If you haven't uh, gone to therapy or done the work in some capacity or in a variety of different capacities, because you realize your own humanity, your own flaws, your own imperfections, your own shadow, right? Your own shadow bullshit. And if you've come to a place where you can't bullshit yourself about your own bullshit, right? You realize, like, well, shit, I'm human. And so, what do I need? What do I want? Well, I want somebody, or I want people to be able to see me, to hear me, to understand me. Well, if I want that, and I need that, and I would appreciate that, huh, then don't other people want that? Wouldn't they appreciate that? And yeah, spoiler alert, yeah, absolutely they do. And they would. Because that's the thing, we all need it. We all want to be seen, felt, heard, and understood as much as we humanly can and as much as it is possible. And I don't think we should ever stop striving to get to know people um, and get to understand people, not in a way that is, to diminish them or to sort of one up them or to, try to have something over on them, but in a way that is genuine, that is grounded, that is empathetic. And obviously, this, to go back to curiosity, this involves curiosity. Because I know it might sound like an earth shattering revelation to many. And I'm going to chuckle to myself here, but certainly applies to me, but none of us are perfect. And when you really know that in your heart of hearts and at the depth of your soul, that you are not perfect, that you are flawed, that you have made mistakes, that you're going to probably make more mistakes, whether intentional or unintentional, that you don't have it all figured out and that you don't know everything there is to know about everything. What a revelation it is to say out loud and to really acknowledge while you're looking at yourself in the mirror, I am human. I am human, ergo, I am imperfect. There was a ancient philosopher poet by the name of Terence who basically said in so many words, I am human, therefore nothing human is alien to me. Or I've heard other versions where it says something like, I am human, therefore nothing human is foreign to me. Well, I'm sorry, but that is so true. That is so on point, so true, and so profound. It just kind of It just can't be stated enough. I mean, it's just, and when you think about it, we all have kind of the general same wants and needs in life. I really don't think many of us have a desire for things that are just so beyond the grasp or so beyond the pale that it's just ridiculous. I think many of us really just kind of want to be comfortable. You know, we want to be acknowledged. We want the basics in life. We're not asking for the world here. We're not asking for everything. I think many of us are pretty content with the idea anyway of just having what we need and not having to worry about, those baseline things that we all kind of need basically to live. Food, water, shelter. Um, we want connection, we want friendships, we want relationships that are deep and meaningful and valuable. And I do think most of us kind of desire somewhat of a meaningful or fulfilling career and work. But beyond that, I don't think most of us are asking for everything in life. Most of us, I don't think, are clamoring to be rich. We're not clamoring to have a bank account that's infinitely, filled, or to have the nicest cars, the nicest clothes, the most beautiful spouse, the biggest house. We're not clamoring. We're not needing all that. And there are scientific articles and studies that have proven this, that at a certain annual income, at a certain average salary, happiness and contentment just sort of plateau, right? Like, we don't need more money to be happy. So, what I'm getting at as it relates back to empathy, before I get too far off into the weeds with that, is that we don't need as much as we think we need. But what we do need, and what we need to remember that we need, I think, is empathy, because we all need it. So what is that? Well, it's grace. It's patience. It's deep listening, active, deep listening from the heart. Not listening to respond, not listening to put something on the person or to take something away from them or to divert their story or to sabotage what they're trying to convey and what they're trying to communicate with us. No, it's just being with somebody. It's listening to somebody from their window. It's seeing through their lens. It's going, okay, you're seeing it, you're feeling this way, you're here, and I feel you're here. I can hear and feel your pain as if I am you. So how does that feel to you? Not not me interjecting my own stuff into the mix. Not, again, hijacking and sabotaging the communication and what the person is trying to share with me, but just sitting and allowing and giving, holding space for another. That's what we need. And I feel like that cannot be stated or overstated or overshared enough. It just can't. And boy, is that, I mean, you talk about the sine qua non of existence. I think empathy is a sine qua non, or the bare essential of existence. It's certainly the bare essential of any relationship. If you don't have empathy, you can't be, I don't think you can be in a healthy relationship with anybody. I really don't. You have to have some metric of empathy. You have to have some baseline or threshold of empathy. But if you don't have that, or you have very little, or it's not as polished as it needs to be, then I think there's a real struggle to be had there. And let me take a moment here to advocate for the other side of things just a little bit. There might be some good reasons as to why, or some perfectly legitimate reasons, I should say, as to why you might be suffering, or uh, your empathy might be kind of waning, right? Or it might be a little bit depleted, or it might not be where it needs to be at a given moment, right? I mean, to be fair to us, again, because we're all imperfect, like, I'm not sure that we bring peak empathy everywhere, at all times, in all ways, in all situations and circumstances. I don't think we're perfectly empathetic all the time, right? I don't know if it's humanly possible. But just because it's not maybe something that can be humanly accessible doesn't mean that it's not to be strived for or striven for, right? I do think we should try to see beyond as much as we possibly can. And what is empathy? It's seeing beyond ourselves. It's knowing that life is bigger than us. It's not all about us. It's certainly, we're a part of it, and we matter too, certainly. But there's a lot more going on out here than just us and how we operate and think and feel, and everything that is going on with us individually. We all know this too. We deep down, we I think most of us know, many of us know, life is much, much bigger than any one person. And I mean, it's so obvious it doesn't really even need to be said, but I think sometimes the most obvious things do need to be said, or we do need to hearken back to those things, because sometimes the obvious things get lost. It's bigger than us. Life is bigger than us. And so empathy allows us, or is, it gives us, and it reminds us of the audacity of that, of the amazement that it's all this stuff is going on, all these people living, doing, breathing, functioning, however they might be, and wherever they might be, and however they might be, right? And wherever they might come from. They're all living their lives. And, we all sort of have to remind ourselves that it's bigger than us, and that life is temporary. So, whether it's a stranger, whether it's somebody you've known for X amount of years, or somebody that you have a pre-existing relationship with on some level, try to get to know them more. Try to get them to know them more deeply, and in a more profound way, right? I think we're constantly evolving as people. We are, or we should be. I think we are, and I think we should be if we're not. If we've grown stale, that's a whole nother topic. But I do think in general, there's always things that we can learn about people, or things like they have to offer us. Sometimes I'd even reflect back upon ourselves that can be so immensely, profoundly, and deeply altering to us, that can change us for the better, that can give us insights into ourselves, excuse me, that we don't, that maybe we were lacking, or that we didn't have. Or here's a here's an idea that maybe they were supposed to offer us and give us. You ever ask yourself that? That the people that you meet or that you encounter or that you've had relationships and friendships with for years, that maybe they're crossways or cross paths in your life, the intersection of you guys being together or knowing each other is maybe for something quite beyond what you can possibly conceptualize as a human being. That's that's a thought. That's a thought, right? So empathy, right? There are challenges to empathy, and it's not easy, and it's not always a walk in the park, but it's necessary, it's vital, and it's needed. So I think we should all invite ourselves to be more empathetic towards others, towards ourselves, towards life. Because I haven't met a single person that knows everything, that has it all figured out, that is perfect, that always responds and reacts in the right way, you know? And if we learn to be more still, more patient, take more time, give ourselves more space, allow ourselves to try as much as we can to see and to sit with the other person with where they're at and where they're coming from, even if it's difficult for us to grasp where they're at and where they're coming from and why they might think and believe the way that they are. I believe it is fundamentally human and fundamentally necessary for us as human beings and as souls to be able to do that. We all need that from others and towards ourselves, because we need empathy too. We need people that can hear us and see us and feel us. So it's not always perfect. We don't always get it right. That doesn't mean we shouldn't practice it more. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't strive to get better at it. And I do believe it's one of those things that we can get better at, and it's one of those things that we have to work at and continue to work at throughout life and pretty much throughout the whole duration of our lives. I don't think the work is ever done when it comes to empathy, but I also think the things that really matter in life and that are really valuable in life and that are central to being a human being are things that we're never done with. I don't think we're ever done improving ourselves in ways that matter, that is. I don't think we're never done with getting more empathetic or being better at being empathetic. I don't think we're ever done with becoming better listeners, more better, compassionate, understanding people, and the list goes on and on. I think you get where I'm going with all that, but I just think the things that matter in life are often things that are difficult at times, that are not easy, that don't offer the quick fix, the easy answer. It oftentimes implies that we have to be more gracious and patient and more at ease, have more equanimity than sometimes we might even want to have, right? But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try, and that we shouldn't apply ourselves. So, what do I offer in all this? I offer slow down more, be patient more, Listen more. Don't try to explain something away. Don't try to solve something. Don't try to fix something. Don't try to, subvert someone else's story. And whatever you do, don't do that. And try not to do that as much as you can if you find yourself doing that. Just simply sit with somebody. Listen. Allow them to be where they are, who they are, and where they are. That's it. That's all that's needed. That's all that's necessary. So, in closing, empathy is not a walk in the park all the time. But in theory, it is easy because it doesn't cost a thing. It doesn't really require the world. It doesn't require, a degree or anything that, needs to be achieved necessarily. It just requires that you're human. It requires you to be present, to be aware, to be awake, to be intentional, to live from soul, to live and see and hear and understand from your heart. Those are the things that really matter in life. So I challenge you, I challenge myself to be more empathetic, to practice empathy, to understand others as much as I can, to continue to understand myself as much as I can, and to offer grace and patience for everyone. That is all I have for today. Again, if you like what you heard, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and offer me comments, offer me reflections, questions, anything you might have. I'm open. I'm your host, Mr. Fox, and it's my privilege. Take care, be well. I'll see you next time. Bye.